In the dead of winter 2025, Riley Harper trudges into Blackthorn, Vermont, a town suffocated by snow and silence, its streets deserted, its houses crumbling under the weight of ice. She's 22, a drifter with hollowed-out eyes and a duffel bag patched with duct tape, no family to claim her, running from a past she keeps locked behind clenched teeth. She's rented a cabin on the edge of town, cheap, squat, its roof sagging like it's tired of standing, its windows boarded with splintered planks that rattle in the wind. The door groans as she pushes it open, a sound too alive, too human, sending a shiver down her spine she ignores. At the gas station, the clerk's voice is low, his eyes avoiding hers. The cabin's been empty for decades, and those who stay there leave wrong, if they leave at all. Riley shrugs, her breath fogging in the frigid air. She's got no other choice, no strength left to care. Inside, the air is thick, heavy with the stench of damp wood and something sour, like meat rotting in a forgotten corner. The walls are streaked with dark stains, mold or blood or both, and the floorboards creak under her boots, bowing as if they might snap. She drops her bag by a rusted wood stove in the corner, its metal dented and cold, and lights it with the last of her matches. The flames flicker weakly, casting jittery shadows that stretch too long across the room, twisting into shapes that don't match the light. Her skin prickles, a warning she's too exhausted to heed. She's been on the road too long, seen too much to jump at shadows now. That first night she hears it, a faint scratching beneath the floorboards, slow and rhythmic, like fingernails dragging across wood, pausing just long enough to make her question her ears. She bolts upright on the sagging cot, her breath clouding in the dim glow of the stove, her heart thudding soft but insistent in her chest. Rats, she tells herself. Or maybe the wind sneaking through the cracks. But the cabin is too still, the silence beyond that sound too absolute, pressing against her like a weight. She pulls her coat tighter around her thin frame, lies back down, her eyes tracing the ceiling where cracks spread out like veins in dead flesh. The scratching doesn't stop. It grows, sharper, more deliberate, circling her like a hunter stalking prey. Morning dawns gray and bitter, the sound gone, but the cabin feels heavier, as if it's holding its breath, waiting for her next move. She brews coffee on the stove, the bitter steam curling up, warming her hands but not her bones. She notices a loose plank in the living room, its edges warped and curling upward, like something's been pushing from below. Curiosity gnaws at her. She's always been the type to prod at wounds, to peek into the dark when she shouldn't. She grabs a crowbar from her bag, a battered tool she's carried for years, and pries the plank up. It snaps free with a dry, splintering crack, revealing a shallow pit dug into the dirt beneath, barely 2 feet deep. In the center lies a single human finger, pale, shriveled, its nail black and cracked, like it clawed its way out of something alive. Riley gags, the crowbar slipping from her grip, clattering loud in the stillness. The plank falls back with a thud and the scratching stops, leaving an eerie quiet that chills her more than the sound. She doesn't sleep that second night. She sits by the stove, the finger seared into her mind, her stomach churning with a dread she can't name. She tries to close her eyes, but the dreams come fast. Hundreds of hands bursting through the floor, their skin gray and peeling, veins pulsing like worms beneath, clawing at her legs, dragging her down into wet, suffocating earth. She jolts awake, sweat soaking her shirt, her breath ragged in the cold. She pulls up her pant legs. Faint bruises circle her ankles, finger-shaped, red and raw, as if the dream left its mark. The scratching returns, louder now, a frantic rhythm that shakes the walls, the ceiling, the very air around her. She grabs her flashlight, its beam trembling as she sweeps it across the room. In the corner, the wallpaper bulges, then splits open with a wet tear. Something glistens through the gap, a strip of flesh, thin and translucent, quivering like it's breathing, alive. Her heart slams against her ribs, a caged animal desperate to break free. She stumbles to her feet and bolts outside, the snow biting at her bare hands. the cold slicing through her thin coat like a blade. The cabin's windows flare with a sickly red glow, casting long shadows across the snow, and the door slams shut behind her with a force that rattles the frame. She pounds on it, her fists aching, her screams swallowed by the empty night. Blackthorn's a ghost town, miles from any soul who might hear. The scratching follows her, echoing through the skeletal trees, burrowing into her skull like a parasite. She staggers back inside, too frozen to stay out, her boots crunching on the frost that's crept across the floor. The boards buckle beneath her, splitting open with wet, tearing cracks, revealing dozens of pits, each cradling fragments of horror. Yellowed teeth, clumps of matted hair, strips of skin stitched together with coarse, blood-crusted thread. The stench hits her like a fist, rotting flesh, alive in its decay, thick enough to choke her. She retches, clutching the crowbar, her mind racing for a way out, any way out. Her eyes dart to the fireplace, where a journal sits wedged between the bricks, its leather cover cracked and stained with soot. Her hands tremble as she pulls it free, pages crumbling under her touch, dust falling like ash. It's written by Elias Crow, dated 1972, his handwriting jagged and frantic. He bought the cabin to escape the world, he writes, but the scratching started his first night. He dug under the floor and found a body, headless, its skin flayed open, limbs twisted into knots no human could endure. He tried to burn it, but the flames wouldn't take. It moved, crawled toward him, spoke in a voice like gravel and bile, promising secrets, power, if he fed it. He started small, rabbits, foxes from the woods, then lured hitchhikers, their screams fading into the pits as he gave in. The last entry is a scrawl, barely legible. "It's me now. I'm under the floor. It won't let me go." Her phone dies as she reads, the screen flickering to black mid-sentence. The stove sputters out, plunging the cabin into darkness, the only light the faint red glow seeping from the windows. The scratching turns to pounding, a thunderous rhythm that shakes the walls, the floor, her bones. The boards erupt, hands claw through, rotted and skeletal, some draped in flesh that sloughs off in wet, dripping clumps. They grab at her boots, her legs, pulling with a strength that's not human, not natural. She swings the crowbar, smashing bones to dust, splintering fingers that snap and reform. But they keep coming, endless, tireless. A voice, raspy, wet, layered with too many tongues, whispers her name from below, curling inside her head like smoke. She runs to the door, but it's sealed shut, the wood pulsing like a heartbeat, veins threading through it, alive. The walls weep blood, thick and black, pooling around her ankles, warm and slick against her skin. Panic seizes her, a wild clawing thing in her chest. She ransacks the cabin, tearing through the clutter until she finds a rusted kerosene can in the closet, its weight sloshing in her shaking hands. She douses the floor, the walls, the air thick with the sharp, biting stink of fuel. She strikes her last match. The flames roar up, a wall of orange and red that blinds her, the heat searing her face. They twist inward, spiraling toward the pits, sucking down into the earth, the hands retreating with a hiss. She holds her breath, hope flickering in her chest like the fire. Then it dies, snuffed out by a force she can't see, can't fight. The room goes silent, a heavy, suffocating stillness that presses against her like a tomb. A figure rises from the largest pit, slow and deliberate, a grotesque patchwork of skin and bone stitched together with black thread. Its torso is a tangle of limbs, some human, some not, bending backward with sickening snaps. Its face is a mass of mouths, dozens of them sewn shut, then splitting open to grin with jagged yellowed teeth. It lurches toward her, dragging itself on arms that twist and crack, its stench a wave of rot and despair. She swings the crowbar, her arm screaming with pain, but it catches her wrist, twisting until the bone shatters with a wet crunch. Pain blinds her, white-hot and relentless, and the mouths open, speaking in unison. "You're home." The voice isn't just outside. It's inside her skull, her chest, her blood. A chorus of welcome that drowns her. She blacks out, the world dissolving into a void of cold and dark. She wakes in the pit, her legs numb, her hands clawing at the dirt, frantic and weak. Thread weaves through her flesh, black, coarse, alive, pulling her skin apart, stitching it back together in a grotesque dance. She feels it tugging at her bones, her muscles, binding her to the earth, to the others trapped below. She screams, but her voice joins a chorus, a symphony of anguish, voices overlapping, pleading, weeping, trapped in the dark with her. She's not alone down there. Elias is there, his presence a faint rasp, and others, dozens, hundreds, their minds tangled with hers, their pain a shared torment. Days pass, or hours, she can't tell, until a new tenant arrives, a man, young and desperate, his eyes hollow with the same exhaustion she once carried. He hears the scratching on his first night, louder, more insistent than it was for her. He finds a loose plank near the stove, pries it up with a trembling hand, and stares down into the pit. Riley's face looks back, sewn into the dirt, her eyes wide and alive, her mouth moving soundlessly, whispering his name in a voice that's not hers anymore. He freezes, his breath catching, and the hands erupt, gray, rotted, clawing up from the earth. They seize him, dragging him down into the pit, his screams cut short as the dirt closes over his head. The cabin groans, a deep, satisfied rumble, its walls settling, its windows dark again, waiting for the next. But Riley's story doesn't end there. She wasn't running from her past. She was drawn back to it, called by the thing beneath. She was Elias's first victim decades ago, the hitchhiker he fed to the entity to quiet its whispers, to claim its promises. It didn't let her go. It reshaped her, sent her out into the world, reborn again and again to lure more, a cycle of bait and blood she couldn't escape. Her life as a drifter wasn't chance. It was the cabin pulling her home, her every step a thread leading back to the pit. Blackthorn rots around the cabin, its edges crumbling into the snow, its silence deeper, heavier, as the town fades into a ghost of itself. The cabin sits, patient, its door creaking open in the wind, waiting. Months pass, the seasons turning, until a new figure arrives. Mara, a hunter, lean and scarred, her face hard with years of chasing things that shouldn't exist. She carries a rifle slung over her shoulder, a gas can in one hand, her boots crunching through the snow with purpose. She's heard the stories, missing drifters, broken families, a town that eats its own, and she's come to end it. She kicks the door in, the wood splintering under her heel, and steps inside, her breath fogging in the cold. The air hits her like a slap, rotten, thick, alive, but she doesn't flinch. She finds the journal first, its pages brittle and blood-stained, and reads Elias's words in silence, her jaw tightening with every line. She finds the pits next, prying up planks with a crowbar she brought, her flashlight catching the glint of teeth, the sheen of stitched skin. She doesn't scream, doesn't hesitate. She pours the gas, her movements calm, deliberate, the sharp stink filling the cabin. She strikes a match and the flames roar up, higher than Riley's, hotter, spreading fast across the floor, the walls, the ceiling. The hands burst through, clawing at the fire, but it doesn't twist inward this time. It burns, relentless, consuming the pits, the thread, the rot. Riley feels it from below, the heat searing through the earth, loosening the thread that binds her. She claws at the dirt, her ruined hands tearing free, her body a mess of shredded flesh and splintered bone. She drags herself up, breaking through the floor as the cabin collapses, the flames licking at her but not taking hold. The patchwork figure rises too, its mouth screaming, its body melting into a puddle of slick white goo that hisses in the fire. Riley collapses, her strength gone, her breath a ragged gasp as the cabin falls around her, a pyre of ash and embers. Mara watches it burn, her face unreadable, then turns and walks away, her silhouette fading into the snow, the town reduced to a smoldering ruin. The scratching stops, or seems to. Blackthorn lies silent, its ashes buried under fresh snow, its secrets burned away, or so it appears. But weeks later, a faint sound stirs beneath the ruins, a whisper of nails on wood, patient and persistent. Figures rise from the ash, smooth, eyeless, their skin glistening like wet clay, their movements silent and sure. They spread beyond Blackthorn, slipping into the world, truck stops, suburbs, cities, their blank faces watching, waiting. Pits open in their wake, small at first, then wider, hands reaching up, smooth and pale, pulling lives into the dark that seals shut behind them. Riley's mind frays, stretched thin across the distance, tied to the figures, to the pits, to every death they claim. She's not in the ash anymore. She's in them, her consciousness a thread woven through their hunger, feeling every scream, every struggle. She sees a trucker vanish in Ohio, a family dragged down in Maine, a city block swallowed in New York, the world unraveling as the figures spread. She tries to fight, to break free, but she's too broken, too bound, her will a flicker in the dark. In a bunker beneath Nevada, Elena Voss, a geologist with sharp eyes and sharper resolve, fights back. She's tracked the pits, mapped their spread, and knows they're not random. Something's feeding them, something old, buried deep. She rigs explosives with a small team, collapsing pits where she can, fault lines, old mines, weak spots in the earth. Riley feels her, a spark in the chaos, and pushes through, forcing her presence into a figure near the bunker. An eye forms, hers, bloodshot, desperate, staring at Elena through the blank face. The geologist freezes, then nods, understanding. Riley guides her, the eye blinking coordinates into the dirt, faults, ruins, roots of the thing beneath. Elena's team strikes. Explosions rip through California, Siberia, Peru, fire and rock burying the pits, burning the hands to ash. The figures falter, some dissolving, the scratching quieting, but they swarm back, stronger, faster. Elena's bunker shakes, pits opening inside, hands clawing through concrete. She rigs her last charge, her voice steady. If you're there, make it count. Riley throws her will into the figures, turning them on each other, their smooth flesh tearing apart. Elena detonates, the blast swallowing the bunker, the figures, the pits in a fireball that shakes the earth. Riley feels her die, a sharp pain in the chorus, and the spread slows, the figures retreating, the pits closing. The world falls quiet, survivors clinging to ruins, hiding in caves, bunkers, shattered cities. The pits lie dormant, the figures gone, the scratching a faint echo beneath the ash. Riley dissolves into the earth, her mind fading, her fight over, or so it seems. Years pass, the snow melting, the world limping on, a fragile peace settling over the scars. But in the Alps, a girl named Lena, barely 10, digs in the dirt outside a survivor camp. She finds a shard of bone, small and curved, threaded with black string. It twitches in her hand, warm against her skin, pulling toward the ground. She stares, curious, as the scratching wakes, a soft, patient sound beneath her feet. A pit opens, small at first, then wider, hands bursting through, smooth, pale, relentless. They grab her legs, pulling her down, her small scream cut short as the dirt closes over her head. Her voice joins Riley's in the chorus, a high note in the dark, blending with the others. The camp falls silent, the survivors unaware, the shard sinking deeper into the earth. The cycle turns again, the presence beneath patient, endless, whispering through the ash, waiting for the next to come.